Hello and welcome to Ashley Haden's Political Breakdown. This time recorded on my phone because I'm technically retarded. Pete is on holiday in Iceland, so I tried to do the tech myself. It turns out I can't. It's quite important to this running, so the sound isn't going to be great. The camera should be fine, saying the Samsung fucking adverts, so we shall see. My guests this week are
Aczel
and
Biswasi.
Fan-fucking-tastic. I'm already in a bad mood, so let's start with a nice news story. The police this week are investigating the discovery of several hundred dead starlings. This was on Tuesday they found them, and we heard about it on Wednesday. Was this telling us the end of the world before the election anyway?
700 dead starlings.
It was several hundred. It was 215 or something like that.
How did they die?
They don't know. The police are saying now they know, but they're not coming out and saying it until they get a toxicology report. But the weird thing is they were found on a road in Anglesey, but there were some on the hedges, but there was no starlings on the fields either side. It was literally just on the road.
What is a starling, sorry?
It's a bird.
I think it's starling like a dictator.
No.
I mean, if they found several hundred of them, I would have understood it.
Yeah, that would.
We know Angleseys are whole many.
That would be bad, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, they're all dead, so it wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Was this Anglesey?
Yes.
Well, it could have been a hotbed of communism in Anglesey, couldn't it?
It could have been. It could have been. They're all dead now.
I don't. It does. Yeah, it doesn't bode well.
It doesn't. It is one of them things that you read and you're there going, well, this is the end of the world, isn't it? This is the start. This is like final destination.
Yeah, it's the end times.
So
Can I just say one thing? Is I'm a political comedian who's slightly autistic, and we're talking about 700 dead birds. If you wanted to get someone slightly autistic, you should have got Chris Packham.
Yeah. I mean,
also, because we were sorting out all the tech and everything, I didn't tell you the rules to this. Don't stare at the camera.
Alright then.
We're all in this for a conversation.
Alright, yeah, no worries.
Because otherwise, you're going to be looking and you're going to be trying to do punchlines.
Yeah, I'm just too
That's
much of a
going
narcissist, but I
That's
won't
going
say.
to annoy me. And I'm already annoyed because of the week.
No, I don't want to annoy you anymore.
yeah. It just couldn't get any better for you.
No, it couldn't. Truly, I'm shitting rainbows today.
Yeah. Positive waves. Anyway, positive waves. Yes.
Positive waves.
Yes. It would be good if it was the end of the world. It would be good.
I mean, how would you prefer the end of the world to go? Do you have a preference?
No preference really. Ideally with the Labour government, but
I mean, there's a lot
That's
of
not going to happen.
No.
There are a lot of people who would tell you that if we get a Labour government, that will be the end of the world. So there is a chance of that happening.
Yeah.
We've had 9 years of Tory austerity, so it feels like the end of the world. So
Yeah.
So and also the Tories are not going to do anything about climate change. So you're probably right. It will be the end of the world soon anyway.
You're right. The Tories are fucking terrible. And as a Labour supporter, how the fuck were Labour unable to defeat arguably the most evil government we've ever had? What does that say about Labour that they've had 9 years of austerity, cuts to all services, NHS on its knees, selling schools to private pseudo charities, fucking rising poverty, 14 million people in poverty, hundreds of thousands of children in poverty, different versions, 1 million people in extreme poverty, and Labour still couldn't beat them.
No. I mean,
Boris Johnson lived in a fucking fridge for a little while, and they still couldn't beat him.
For the next few years, he's just going to be defrosted, isn't he? No policies.
Well, no. I think that's unfair. The difficulty is we're all slightly in shock.
100%.
Because we live, for a start, we live in the London bubble, which is predominantly Labour. I mean, it's a Labour,
Yeah.
and we assume that the rest of the world's like that, but it's not. The rest of the world's different.
I think one thing is, Yeah, go on. I think one thing is that we underestimated probably our Brexit position. Huge swathes of the North and Midlands understood Boris Johnson's message or connected with the message of get Brexit done, and our message was a bit all over the place.
But since the elections happened, every poll I've seen, every survey I've seen from Labour supporters who went over and voted for other people, the biggest thing was Corbyn, not Brexit.
Yeah.
Every time it was because you want because this is what I've seen automatically for on Twitter. And go, oh, this is because of Brexit, it's because of Brexit, it's because of Brexit. No, it's not. Brexit may have a small amount to do with it, certainly, but the idea, because every study that's been coming out, you're looking at say 21% is because of Brexit, 40% is because of Corbyn.
I think the issue with Corbyn was trust, and certainly trust about money, fundamentally. The programme that they were offering, regardless of whether it was possible, didn't seem realistic. And there were two instances when suddenly people thought, this is madness. The first was free broadband for everyone.
Yeah, that was jumping the shark.
That was just sort of over the top, really. But and the second one was the WASPy women. Was that everybody had said about the WASPy women is we'd like to do it, but it's going to cost us £58 billion. And Corbyn, without it being part of his manifesto, just said they'll get the cash.
Yeah, and it's such a small percentage of voters. Like, I know you're trying to do something that you think is going to be nice and everything else, but fucking say we'll look into it. Don't say, oh, we're going to give you the fucking money.
But the difficulty is that everybody thought he was offering a blank cheque to everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, go on, you carry on, sorry.
And I think that people reacted against that, and always the question was, how are you going to afford this? Was we're going to borrow the money, and everyone was going, well, you can't just infinitely borrow money.
You literally can.
You can.
Well,
Because the interest rates are nothing.
yeah, but the interest rates aren't going to be like that forever.
I mean,
Yeah, go on. I'm just thinking I think it's a deeper problem, and a lot of people might not agree with this, but Corbyn was the most smeared politician in history, I think. They had a survey at London School of Economics when he first became leader, out of 8 national newspapers over a month. And the survey said that 54% of articles were negative or towards Jeremy Corbyn, and 52% didn't even, in the articles, didn't even represent his opinions, and 2/3 of them, not articles themselves, but opinion pieces were negative as well. This is a guy who's been one of the most smeared politicians in history.
him and Trump.
I think there's an element of truth in that.
The whole establishment is against him. It's people in his
Wait,
own party.
wine. Let's not go conspiracy theory.
It's not, no, but it's not.
This is someone who's been an MP for like 30 years.
It's not
He is the
conspiracy.
establishment.
No, but the whole if you look in America and you take a look here, they don't want a genuine left-wing candidate. They don't want a candidate who's going to clamp down on tax avoidance, redistribution of income and wealth,
they don't.
and who wants nationalisation. And if you look at Bernie Sanders, arguably a better candidate than Corbyn in terms of a better speaker, they got rid of him by introducing super delegates. They do not want anyone who is genuinely left-wing, and it's not just me saying it, it's people in the media who are respected, like George Monbiot.
Yeah, no, I accept that. I do accept that point. I don't fully buy into that was the reason he lost.
I think that's the main reason. They will never accept a genuine left-wing candidate.
I mean, The problem with that, and this is my problem with Corbyn as a whole. It's his, it's the cult that follow him. The inability for Corbyn supporters to take anything that resembles responsibility for the actions of themselves. And because what you have to, I mean, I've always, this has been one of my major problems with the left, is the left want moral superiority without putting the fucking effort in. You have to look inwards once in a while. You can argue that the Daily Mail hated him, the Sun hated him, and the likes of Murdoch have too much power, certainly. But that's the same reason why the Tories got in, why Blair got in, why Gordon Brown lost. You want to talk about people being treated badly, you're not even going into the fact that when Ed Miliband was there, they did absolute hit pieces against his dad and against him for being fucking Jewish.
Yeah.
All people who are being attacked. Corbyn is being attacked, some of the bits, for things that he didn't say. But a lot of the stuff that he actually did. He's not this.
Well, I think we need to. Certainly, the issue with Corbyn. I think we need to. Well, from a strategy point of view, and this is what I've been thinking about today. Actually, is. Actually, I do believe there was an element of hubris and fundamental errors in Corbyn's judgment.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
That actually caused this situation, frankly. Firstly, what he was gambling on was that in the 2017 election with Theresa May, he got a huge boost, and you know, I mean, he was doing rallies to 100,000 people.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, you know, all of that sort of stuff. He was a spirit of hope, and in 2017 they got that, even though they were hugely behind in the polls, they got a huge. You know, they got a huge boost during the election campaign. And what he assumed this time is it would be the same.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent.
There was no evidence it would be.
No.
You know, and the problem with that was he was given. The Tories were always ahead of the polls in sort of September, October, November. They were ahead of the polls quite significantly, and therefore any election that happened kind of nowish was probably going to go their way, or it was far more likely to go that way. And Corbyn just got it wrong.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have done an election now.
Him and Lib Dems, the absolute hubris of both of them,
Yeah,
to allow this election to go on.
Yeah.
No, if you want to fucking do an election, then the first thing you have to do is put them into weak as bollocks. Put Tories into weak as bollocks position, and continue to fucking push it along, and put out the idea that it is them who are doing it. The Tories are the ones who haven't got Brexit done because they have been unable to. The problem is they've allowed the Tories before this election to just move what the narrative is. Constantly just move what the narrative is, time and time and time again, so that when you get to an election, they're ahead in the polls because they're the ones saying, oh no, we wanted all of this done, but we couldn't. They're going, well no, they wanted to do something that you didn't vote for. You didn't vote for what they're saying. We want to give you the Brexit that you actually voted for. They're trying to screw you over. But all they did is constantly going, oh no, we're going to do a general election. That's it. You're not putting your fucking foot over their throat, which is what you have to do in politics.
So
Dan, do you mind getting us a pint? Thanks.
Of
Beer.
any particular?
IPA.
Anyone else?
No thanks anyway.
no. I think the issue, and to go back to this point, is in early November, Boris, ultimately what had happened in a mad way is the European Union, well, I've got a number of people, I've got a number of things that I blame for this current situation, and I see it as a complete, basically everything is destroyed.
Yes.
And
Finally.
all my hopes have been completely destroyed. All of the good guys are now gone, and you know, where do we go from here? We've got crazy wars. We've just got this madness.
Can I just think maybe last time Labour said they weren't going to have a referendum, and this time they said they are going to have a referendum. Maybe that has a huge part to play. But I've asked actually, what could have the Liberal Democrats and Labour done differently then?
As I said, if you're going to do an election, make sure that you're at the minimum ahead in the polls. Blame the government for everything that the government is doing. Get the message out there.
Yeah.
You have to get badly
They
then.
didn't. They didn't.
Yeah.
This was the thing. What happened? Which, well, there are a number of things. The big thing about this election that really destroyed the Lib Dems was the fact that the Brexit Party wouldn't stand in any Conservative constituency,
Yeah.
which meant that the Conservative vote was concentrated in all of their own constituencies.
Yeah.
And if so, for example, there were so many Conservative constituencies where it's pretty marginal. It's 2,000 votes, either Lib Dem. The other thing the Lib Dems and the Labour Party have a monumental hubris, just complete and total arrogance. They didn't combine. They didn't. You know.
The moment the Brexit Party went, we're not standing in 317 seats, Labour and Lib Dems should have fucking both taken their heads out their asses, and they were never going to, because they fundamentally stood on different principles. But if you were there just to actually not get the Tories in, which should have been it. That should have been it.
That should have been the difficulty is
But we never got more seats because Lib Dem's only got 13 or so seats, and the Labour got how many ever? 203.
Then what you would have had is maybe Labour, you kept that 203, maybe they would have got more because the Lib Dems would have been standing in certain seats where it was minority, and potentially the Lib Dem thing, because the Lib Dems would have been there going, do not vote for the Tories. You can't vote for the Tories after 9 years.
Well, some Lib Dem candidates did that.
In my constituency, it's the 10th safest seat Tory seat in our country. If there'd been a combined Labour and Lib Dem vote, you could have been looking at a marginal seat.
Yeah.
But
wow, I never knew that. So yeah, I didn't think about that.
But the reality is they didn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and because the Labour Party thought they'd win a majority, yeah, and the Lib Dems wanted to go for gold themselves, and you know it's just
the main
it's just
thing.
Absolutely the thing. What they've done, frankly, is they voted for Brexit themselves.
Yeah.
You know they've done it. That was their vote.
The arrogance of Labour as well, who it seemingly at points during this election were just there to say, you've left us, we're going to fuck you. Shaka Umar, Lucinda Berger, all these, they're not bad fucking MPs, especially Lucinda, who left the fucking Labour Party because of the disgusting anti-Semitism in the fucking party, because of the abuse that she got. Labour went after her seat. Went, no, don't do that, there's a chance of her getting in, but instead a fucking Tory got in. Because of the arrogance of fucking Labour still being unable to admit that anti-Semitism is a problem in the Labour Party?
Well, no, I think it's amazing. Anti-Semitism is a problem with the Labour Party, but it's something like 0.01%. And it needs to get tackled. I've seen anti-Semitism, I heard about it in my local Labour Party in Wimbledon. The fact is the mainstream media have weaponised against Jeremy Corbyn, against everything. There's rampant Islamophobia.
It's fault.
It is his fault, I'm not saying, but there's rampant Islamophobia, there's anti-Semitism, and there's racism towards black people by the things that Boris Johnson had.
Yes, but that is what about
the difficulty with the anti-Semitism. The difficulty with the anti-Semitism. Well, I think there's two issues with anti-Semitism. If someone is Jewish, for example, Luciana Berger of this world, they use the anti-Semitism card against her for everything she does. And the issue I've got is that I actually think Jeremy Corbyn was incapable of solving that problem.
Yes.
He wasn't quick enough to deal with it.
Well, he's got an entire history of only being on one side. His history isn't working together with both sides to get them onto a table to talk about peace. His side is, he backs one side. That's his entire fucking thing. That's why he was a great backbencher, but a fucking terrible leader of a party. Because he's never, in his fucking life, tried to work both sides together. Even the people you disagree with, you have to bring them together if you ever want to solve peace. There was a poll done by the ICM this week, surveyed 2,011 voters about their views on Muslims and Jews in the UK. So they found that 37% of Tory supporters viewed Muslims in a negative light, 26% of the electorate as a whole, and 16% of Labour supporters. Conservatives are more likely to say that Islam threatens the British way of life. That's 62% compared to 45% of the general public, 35% of Labour. 55% of the Tories should agreed that there should be a reduction in the number of Muslims entering Britain. 41% of the general public, 33% of Labour supporters. 7% of both Labour and Tory has said that they have negative views on Jews as a group, and that is the same as the public as a whole. 7%.
Right.
That's the same as the public as a whole. 20% of Labour agreed Jews have a disproportionate influence in politics. 15% of the wider public, 14% of Tories. 29% of Labour say that Jews are more loyal to Israel than Britain. 24% of the Tories, that is in line with the general public. The problem is you keep... This is the ICM.
ICM poll, yeah.
Yep, and the problem with the ICM, they run by Jews.
No, I'm saying that's what I know what poll it was.
Yes, ICM. Now, the problem is that you're right that Tories are vastly worse. What they've basically done here, and I've said it previously, is you have consolidated all your hate into one party. But the Labour are meant to be the good guys. We're the kind ones. We're the lovely ones. We're the ones who are left wing, want to do lovely for this world. But you cannot claim, and as I say, the left have to do better. Have to be better. If you want to say you're good people, you have to fucking act like it.
We've acted like that. Jeremy Corbyn's been an anti-racist campaigner all his life. So have a lot of people in the left.
I mean, but that means nothing. You could be an anti-campaigner, racist campaigner all your life, and then that one time you kick a black man to death, that doesn't make everything you did previously right.
But Jeremy Corbyn's never done that. He has been slow to deal with anti-Semitism, but it's the way the media have portrayed it.
He's ignored it, he's got involved personally, and we'll see this when the EC
you look at
RH
there's been several times where he's actually defended the Jewish community.
Oh, he's a fucking legend then. Well done to him. Let him fucking eat cake.
So it's the way it's the way that the media portrayed it.
I mean, this is still.
There's loads of Jews I know who supported the Labour Party, and then don't get me wrong. He has been slow in certain circumstances to deal with anti-Semitism, but we've had people like Jenny Formby, and we've had the NEC have a dispute panel to try and get rid of it and investigate each individual cases.
But Jenny Formby didn't really do that well.
She did do that. That's what they did. They got
no, but she didn't do that well, and she wasn't effective.
It's like the fucking Chequer Party report.
Yeah. I mean, this was the other thing. This was the sort of fundamental problem with the whole thing. Is the leadership was Well, it seems, this is what I understand the case to be, is with anti-Semitism, the issue with it was that the leadership tried to bury it,
Yes.
was in denial for an awful long time that it was actually going on, tried to avoid it, and then suddenly when they had to deal with it, they didn't deal with it in an effective way.
No, they could have done it a lot quicker.
And they didn't expel people from the Labour Party.
They claim they did though.
No, but they didn't. The point is that they really didn't have a no tolerance. They were trying, one way or another, to bury the thing, and they weren't trying to do it in a way that was effective. The other thing that Jeremy Corbyn didn't do, and this is the tricky thing about Jeremy Corbyn, is that actually I think at the bottom line was, and it was never brought out into the open, was what is his genuine view of Israel? Because it was never discussed. And this was the core, this is why everybody said, why a lot of Jewish people said, he's anti-Semitic. Individually, he is anti-Semitic, was because he never opened up about his views on Israel.
I mean, he took
Pro-Palestinian, isn't he?
Yeah, but you can be pro-Palestinian and not anti-Israel. I always do it in a very simple way. When I'm talking about Israel, I say the Israeli government cunts.
Yeah,
Vile
definitely, 100%.
shitheads. But Israel, fine.
Yeah.
You know, it should be a two-party state. Israel shouldn't invade Palestine. You can say all of that, quite rightly, and that is not anti-Semitic.
He should have said that, yeah, he should have communicated it clearly.
Oh, yeah, but the question is whether or not that's his opinion. But we've spent like 25 minutes explaining and going after Jeremy Corbyn being a cunt. Right. We've spent
He's
that.
been anti-racist campaign all his life.
He has. I totally, and he's also been on the side of the underdog,
Yeah.
which I totally agree. And I don't think the difficulty is I don't think he should be completely trashed for wanting to do good in this world, and everybody in the world thinking otherwise.
Yes,
Yeah,
he's also blamed Israel for terror attacks
Can I just say
on
one
Press
thing?
TV.
He's also blamed. He's also been against Saudi Arabia. He's been against other regimes as well. And when he's had people like Hamas or IRA, he's trying to negotiate peace. Well, I do agree
One
with you.
side.
Well,
Never both.
no, well, I do agree with you. Yeah, he should have got other sides to help as well.
Because you can't
But,
negotiate peace on one side.
No, but he's helped actually because he got Mo Molan apparently to speak. To
No,
Israel.
yeah, no, Mo Molan had said, and that is fundamentally a lie. That is absolute bullshit. He had fuck all to do with it. And I am sick to death of trying. I know he's JC, but he's not the second coming of Jesus Christ. He is an old talcum powdered bellend. That's it. He looks like a fucking someone put a smug face onto a scrotum. I'm sick to death of anyone holding any politician in high esteem. Every single one of them.
I'm just saying that it's been. I've got a lot of Jewish
Everything
friends who are
stands-
left wing and who voted for him.
87% of Jews said they would not vote for him.
Yeah, but
so
what
maybe
was
you've got a
that? How
handful.
representative was it?
Yeah,
A lot.
That's tricky.
You can't say
That's
that. How
tricky.
82.
But look,
Yeah, but you're doing anecdotal. Going, I know a Jew he voted for.
the
I'm
difficulty.
not being I have been anecdotal, but I'm just saying that we have to look at both sides.
But that's I actually think we should get off the subject.
I think we should talk about why Tories are cunts.
But,
Yeah, I think you're right.
But because this is what's happening to all of us, and will happen for months to come, is we'll just start fighting each other because it's all gone fucking wrong.
I agree 100%.
You shouldn't have a side. That's the problem. The whole of it. I'm going to go on and why Tories are cunts now. We've already covered why Lib Dems are cunts. Everyone's a cunt. Stop having a side. You're always going to be wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone's
Everyone's a cunt. Everyone lies. Right.
Okay.
Tory bastards. On to them.
Can I?
Go on.
If this is
can
about
I-
Corbyn, I'm going to chuck out the fucking window.
So I'm just going there.
We're on to Tories now.
Can I just say one thing? It's not about Corbyn. This is about. You said to bring some articles
Yeah.
to the thing. I just
He
like.
You
Oh, no.
In 2013, there
One
was
fucking day.
in 2013 there was a study done by.
Is this something about this week?
No, it's about
Then we're not doing it.
independent. No, it's about an independent newspaper, and they said that people have no clue what's going on. In terms of 1,000 people surveyed, people thought that for every £100 spent, £24 was fraudulent when it's actually 70 pence. People don't do their research, and it doesn't matter whether you live in North England or the Midlands or
Yeah,
London.
I do agree. I
shit.
and you can bring this on to the Tories,
Yeah.
but and why people voted this way. It's there's an element of truth in all of that. Is that actually, you know, it's ultimately people don't understand Brexit is going to cost everyone a shitload of money for a long, long time, but they don't care.
And also, they were saying about the Brexit that Boris Johnson, actually there will be actual checks. So people don't take the time to do even 10 minutes of research on the issues of the day.
No.
And people have this distorted view of what the Sun newspaper or what Tory adverts, which were fraudulent, tell them.
I know, but I think you're saying that well, there's two things you're actually saying is it's not fair that the Tories got the results. I don't fully agree with that, because the Tories got the results and it was a legitimate result, and the reason why the Tories got the result was in the main in the north of England, where everybody voted Brexit, the Tories were the only party that were saying we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, nobody particularly likes Boris Johnson. Do you really believe that Boris Johnson is liked anywhere particularly? He's not.
He's going to cheat on the country.
Yeah, he's going to sell the country. Yeah, but the point is that he was the only one offering we're gonna do it. And to be fair, Theresa May was all wibbly wobbly about doing it. But Boris Johnson is the only one that says, who gives a fuck? We're going to do it. We're going to drive the country off the bus, because that's what everyone wants.
I mean, like Boris Johnson, is very much dependent on which article actually went out, whether he was a Remainer or a Leaver. He wrote 2 separate articles for the Telegraph. He got paid for both of them, and I respect that.
Yeah.
Because one of them didn't even go out. It was there going, mate, here we go. I'm going to get paid for both of these fuckers.
The point about all of this is that's what people voted for, and they genuinely voted for that. I don't think the question is whether people have been lied to. I mean, this is always.
It's not whether people have been lied to, it's just people never done any research into the issues themselves.
There's an element of truth that people don't quite know what they're voting for.
I argue that about people who claim to know what they're talking about as well.
But this was
because we only look at one side. That's the confirmation bias as a whole.
The point about this election is it was decisive.
Yes, massively.
Yeah, massively decisive.
And I mean, I'm so angry that it was decisive. I was hoping it was going to be indecisive. That was the best I was hoping for. But you know, a hung parliament, you know, where it would just be crazy laws for years. But the reality is,
I think it's a mixture of a few things. First of all, I don't think our rages. Number one, the Labour Party won't give an 11 playing field. Number two, Brexit was a massive issue itself.
Sorry.
Number three, people didn't do the research themselves, and we still readily accept the opinions that the mainstream media tell us.
I mean,
those are the 3 main issues.
But the mainstream media isn't as important as it was.
I still think it is.
No.
I still think it is.
The mainstream
a lot of
media
people in my workplace.
It's television.
you know, everything you're saying is anecdotal. Everything you might as well say, well, fucking everything that I see on my Facebook is this, but
People
what you
don't
see on
read-
your Facebook is only what you
don't
see.
read the papers in the way that they used to.
No, but they go on the internet and they read the adverts they see.
Labour do just as much fucking adverts. They, in 2017, they had vastly more traction online than the Tories did. They put a lot more in. The difference difference is that this time the Tories brought in people who are well versed in spreading propaganda. The Labour aren't fucking clean on this.
No.
This is the problem with it all. Everyone has done bad. There's 88%.
I suppose this is the.
For the older generation.
I suppose this is actually a good point. Is that somehow, and this is something that's annoying about the left, is that we're the good guys and they're the bad guys.
Yes.
And everything they do is bad and everything we do is good. And it's a grey. The
Yeah.
reality is, in many ways, it's great.
They're
The
all in
re-
politics.
the reality is, though, I really do think the Tories are the bad guys.
Yes.
You know.
I just want to say, what you said is right, propaganda. That's what they fell for, the propaganda. And obviously they wanted Brexit done as well. We didn't connect to the northern town.
No. But what you're saying is that innately people are good. They've just been led the wrong way. I just don't.
I think to a certain extent they have. No.
I mean, that's borderline patronising.
Not patronising, I'm just saying, if you look at, I'm not saying they're innately good, we didn't connect to them, they wanted Brexit done and we failed to connect to that. But also, if you take a look at Liverpool, they got rid of the Sun newspaper and it's wall-to-wall red.
Yeah, but
that's because they're not. That's because they're not willing to vote for
they were
Tories.
always red.
Yeah.
They were always red.
Yeah. And since Hillsborough, they're not willing to do the Sun, and they're not willing to vote for Tories. That's nothing to do with Labour.
Liverpool has always been red.
Yeah, I know that.
And it's not changed.
You can't say that's because they don't have the
It's
Sun.
red.
Well, it is, isn't it?
No.
It was red in the 80s as well. But the issue, the difficulty I have with the Labour Party is, and someone was saying it on the telly last night, was that it's actually two, maybe three parties. It's a coalition of different disparate people, and it so happens that the coalition of people oppose each other fundamentally.
Yeah.
And therefore any Brexit policy was never going to please. So a Remain Brexit policy was never going to please the people in the North and the Midlands who voted solidly for Brexit. But the people in London voted Remain.
Yeah.
And you've got two different groups of people. How can you square that circle? And that was a problem that Corbyn. No, that was a problem that Corbyn had. You're either a Remain party or you're a Leave party.
Yeah, I 100.
And you can't be both. And to a certain extent, he was both. But he was going to lose the North anyway if he did that. And that was the reality. That is what happened.
Right, simple. Get rid of Corbyn, get rid of Seamus Milne, get rid of Len McCluskey.
That's not going to solve the problem.
I mean, it'll fucking solve some of mine. I'll be honest with you.
It's not
Good
gonna-
God.
the reality is-
Seamus Milne is a fucking knobhead of the fucking highest
You
level.
can't get rid of Len McCluskey. I mean, this is.
I know you can't get rid
Can I
of
ask you a question, guys? Well, where did most of the people who voted in the North get the information from?
that. I don't know where.
Yeah, but then.
Because if you go on about fucking.
The BBC.
Yeah, but you're going on about a scenario that you're saying that people are like lambs and they've been led in the wrong direction.
Not
You
necessarily.
fundamentally cannot accept any fucking responsibility that Labour did anything wrong. It's
No,
always
no,
everything you've
wrong.
said so far is they're going, oh, it's the media, it's this, it's that, it's because people.
I admit that we're
people are
slow on
doing things.
anti-Semitism.
Yeah, but that's it, slow on anti-Semitism. No, you're anti-Semitic.
We're not an
That's
anti-Semitic
it.
party.
Oh my good God in
We're
heaven.
not introducing anti-Semitic.
this is
We've had
why
pockets of
Labour-
anti-Semitism.
This
but
is
we're
why
not.
Labour will never get in again.
But how can you say we're anti-Semitic when it's like 0.1%?
No,
We've had problems with
you'll never
anti-Semitism.
get in again.
But
Anyway, look.
Have you got the evidence?
We were meant to go on.
you show me the evidence so it's the anti-Semitic.
Give it next month when the ERCH come out with their findings
We've got
after
problems
the
with anti-Semitism, but we're not
Oh,
anti-Semitic.
good
That's
God.
the survivors.
That's the exact same. Well, sue me.
We're going on Tories and cunts. Forget. We
I've
all
got
agree on
tons.
that.
I've got
We all-
tons of
we all-
Labour and
anti-
Tories account.
We all agree that. Everyone agrees that.
88% of
Look at that.
Tory.
88% of Tories happen to be cunts.
Oh no, 100%.
No.
Everyone's
No,
everyone's
I still believe there's 12% of the Tories that are probably all
The
right.
Tory Prime Minister went to my school, so.
I think that
John Major.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Did he?
and Geoff Norcott went as well, 3 years above me.
Jeff Norcott.
He's
Did
a
he?
Tory comedian, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
I think that 100% of Tories are cunts and 101% of Labour.
Okay.
88% of most widely promoted
I think
ads
5 out of
for
4 people can't
Tories.
be factions, so.
88%.
Love joke.
We're on to Tories are cunts. That's what we're ending on.
Okay.
And we're only sticking with this. If you mention Labour, I
Yeah.
swear to God, this is all
No
about my
Jeremy
Tories
Corbyn.
are cunts.
Yeah,
Only about my
anti-Semitism.
Tories are cunts.
That's out. It's gone.
88%.
It's gone. It's over. Leave it.
88% of Tories' most widely, whatever word I've said there, promoted ads either featured claims which had been flagged as by independent fact checkers as not correct or not entirely correct.
Yeah.
Was their entire win based on the fact that they lied better?
Well, there's two issues. That I think is absolutely clear. The first is that no general election is ever honest.
No.
Yeah.
It's worse now, though. But.
Yeah, but in the past you've had some really dishonest.
Is it?
Yeah,
I mean,
and the assumption, and kind of the assumption that the Tories lied better is I just don't buy.
No?
It was 88%, wasn't it? 0%
Yeah.
Labour and Lib Dem.
Yeah, but lying, they all lie. Elections are about lying in some ways, and
But the Tories, even more so. They lied about. The Tories lied about.
that's not the point. Anyway.
I only murdered one person, they murdered 6.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
But to a certain degree, yeah, the Tories are lies. The Tories are lies. But so are the Labour Party, so are the Lib Dems. They're all lies.
Now,
Yeah.
so let's go through some of the new Tory MPs that have got in.
No, it's too depressing.
One of the guys is one of the ones who, during the election, recommended that we brought back forced labour camps. He got in.
Right.
And another MP got in that was caught pissing in the street.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah, okay, that's fine. We've also got Sally Ann Hart. She suggested that people with learning difficulties could work for less than minimum wage.
Right.
Which there you go, yep. And that's nearly 50%. She got nearly 50%, and that was in Hastings and Rye. So I look forward to doing Hastings. Yes. Look forward to doing fucking Hastings Fringe. It's going to be a fun one.
Have you done Hastings Fringe?
Yeah.
Is it alright?
I mean, I didn't have tons of people in just testing out some new stuff, but I mean, the people who came down were lovely.
Did you get
But,
paid less than that?
I fucking did. And that is a worry because I thought I could learn fine.
Maybe got secret learning difficulties.
This
like
is
that.
it.
Well, if you're a comedian.
She's also facing 2 party investigations over alleged Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. But because it's only a small amount, it's not actually anti-Semitism.
Yeah, obviously it's
Sorry, no, I'm being a cunt.
We all come anyway.
Yeah. Now, what's strange with this is the Tories won 270,000 more votes than they did in 2017, which is translated into 48 seats extra.
Yeah.
Is that a fundamental fuck up? I know we spoke about this the last time you were on, first past the post.
Well, yeah, actually no. In some ways. No.
Explain them.
No. And the thing about the first past the post system is that it's meant to give decisive governments.
Yeah.
So it's meant to give governments that can make decisions. And as much as we hate the decisions that are going to be made, at least for the next 5, well, for argument's sake, but in theory, with a large majority, the government, the executive can now make proper decisions, which was true in, you know, the Labour Party and under the sort of Tony Blair years. Where politics falls down in this country is where you have hung parliaments, because nobody can make any decision, and you get people at the fringes like the ERG and all of those sort of 20 MPs making policy for the entire government. This was actually the issue with the 70s, was that politics, you know, it was always, there was nobody had a majority for anything. And therefore no decision could ever get made. Mrs. Thatcher had a majority, and she did some really, really horrible bad things, but people voted for her throughout that time because it was decisive government. There was a plan and it was going somewhere. If you look well, no, but if you look at some of the things about the 70s, there was no plan. I mean, this is the problem you've got with that people are complaining about, is that there are no policies on other things.
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's just Brexit, and everybody, and
people bought to that, but people bought to that.
Yeah, but there's no pothole. There's no policy on potholes.
Actually, they had some money.
Yeah, but there's no policy for social care. There's no coherent policy on anything at the moment, and with a decisive government, they develop coherent policies on all of these things.
I would say that having a Tory majority does mean that the last hope for disabled people is if the Tories start deciding that we can use disabilities as some form of currency, because otherwise they're fucked, absolutely fucked. Unless they start considering that, like, oh, we're going to swap you, how much is that? Well, that's worth 2 Parkinsons and a fucking MS. We are screwed. But disabled people, I'm telling you, absolutely fucked.
Fair enough, I'm with you, man.
maybe not an idea that everyone backs. It's certainly my concern. On that note,
we've really changed the bloody world today.
Right. Final thoughts, quickly. Final thoughts.
We're all fucked.
Final thoughts.
We're all fucked.
Nice. Final bit of news. Britain's economy has been dragged back into stagnation because the Tories aren't good with finances. Over in Dublin, they started a hashtag on Bridge Halfpenny to put in coats for homeless people for the winter, and then the council decided to remove them all because they're cunts. House Democrats have announced and passed 2 articles of impeachment against Trump, but they've only passed the first one, got other votes coming. Harvey Weinstein is still a cunt. YouTubers are threatening to close their accounts in what has been called boo-hoo, fuck yourself. DUP are fucked, and that's nice. Figures for Eurostat have shown that Britain's regions have failed to keep up with the rest of Europe since 2008, meaning that we did have 3 regions that were struggling, as defined by GDP per head, a population worth 75% or less of EU average. Now it's 7. WTO top courts have shut down, so even if we leave without a deal, we're fucked anyway. And I think that is it. For a bit of fun, George Soros, his hedge fund, have shorted 16 million bet against the shares of the Daily Mail, so I hope he makes more money. I want to thank my guests, Ed Aczel and Don Biswasi.
Thank you.
And Dan, please stop this now.
Stop this madness.
Yeah.
I don't think it recorded.